Summary of Citizen, an American lyric by Claudia Rankine. Citizen is a collection of short stories, poems, pictures, and copies of different kinds of visual art. It moves between many different topics and points of view. At the beginning, Rankine introduces the main character, a black person who goes by the name You. This character is a young girl who is sitting in class when the white girl sitting behind her asks her quietly to lean over so she can copy her test answers. Even though it's clear that the girl behind her is cheating, the main character leans over to help her, all the while asking why her teacher hasn't caught on. She figures out that it's either because her teacher doesn't care about cheating or, even worse, because she never really saw the main character sitting there. Rankine tells a story about a later time in the life of this young woman, when a friend of hers often calls her by the name of her own maid. This happens later in the young woman's life. The main character knows that her friend makes this mistake because the maid is the only other black person she knows, but neither of them says this. The friend stops calling the main character by the wrong name in the end, but the main character doesn't forget this. To show that this kind of racism is hard to get rid of, Rankine includes a shot by Michael David Murphy called Jim Crow Road. This shows that it's hard to get rid of racism that has been around for a long time. In the background of the shot are big houses in a well-kept suburban neighborhood. In the center, there is a sign that says the neighborhood is at the end of a street called Jim Crow Road. This is proof that the country's racist past is still woven into the way people live today. Rankine stays with the unnamed main character, who is constantly asking herself, "What did he just say, and did I hear what I think I heard?" after hearing racist comments. She realizes that racism is hard to deal with because people of color have to experience it before they can figure out how to deal with it. In other words, there is no way to avoid the pain at first. This problem comes up often for the main character, like when a coworker at the university where she teaches complains that his dean is pushing him to hire a person of color. When the main character hears this, she thinks why her friend feels like she can say this to her, but she doesn't say anything. Still, the whole thing gives her a dull headache, and she wishes she didn't have to act like this kind of behavior is okay. The main character goes through a lot of similar small slights. Some of them aren't really that small, though. For example, when she and her partner want to go to a movie, they ask a black friend to pick up their child from school. On the way home from the movie, the main character gets a call from her neighbor. The neighbor tells her that a man who looks scary is walking back and forth in front of her house. A neighbor says that he is talking to himself. The main character claims that the man is her friend and reminds the neighbor that he has met this person before. However, the neighbor doesn't believe her and says he has already called the police. It's no surprise that the main character is right. By the time she and her partner get to their house, the cops have already been and gone, and their neighbor has already apologized to their friend, who was just on the phone. When the main character feels awkward, she tells her friend that the next time he should take his calls in the garden. After a tense wait, he tells her that he can take his calls wherever he wants, and the main character feels bad that she told him that he couldn't. Even more obviously racist is when the main character is in queue at Starbucks and the white man in front of her says the N-word to a group of black teens. When she tells him that he shouldn't use that word, he acts like it's no big deal. When she tells him not to get all KKK on the teens, he says, "Now there you go," trying to make it seem like the main character has gone too far, not him. Rankine then moves on to look at how the main character and other people of color deal with racism all the time. The natural reaction to unfair treatment is anger, but Rankine shows that this isn't always an option for people of color, since showing anger often leads to more unfair treatment. She uses the career of the famous African-American tennis player Serena Williams to show this. Williams has been treated poorly by the mostly white tennis community because of her race, and Williams's career is a good example of this. By talking about some of Williams's outbursts in response to this unfairness, Rankine shows that anger, which is a natural reaction to racism, often makes things worse. This is what happens to Williams when she is fined $82,500 for speaking out against a line judge who makes a clearly biased call against her. 3 years later, Serena Williams gets 2 gold medals at the 2012 Olympic Games. When she celebrates by doing a 3-second dance on the tennis court, commentators call her immature and classless for crip walking all over the most lily-white place in the world. Rankine describes a few more uncomfortable situations in which the unknown main character has to deal with racism in silence. At one point, she goes to a reading by a comedian who says that most people wouldn't laugh at racist jokes in public, where black people might hear them. When he says this, the main character realizes that the comedian has effectively cut her off from the rest of the crowd by only talking to the white people in the crowd and focusing on their point of view while not realizing, or caring, how racist his joke is. At another event, the main character hears Judith Butler, a philosopher, talk about why words can hurt people. Butler says this is because just being alive makes people addressable, which means other people can talk back to them. At this point, the main character realizes that being black in a world where white people are the majority doesn't make her feel anonymous, but hypervisible. The author Zora Neale Hurston said that she feels most colored when she's thrown against a sharp white background. But these thoughts don't make the heroine feel better about the pain she feels every day because of the racist way people treat her. She can't let herself be angry, so she suffers alone. At this point, Citizen gets more abstract and literary as Rankine writes scripts for situation videos she made with her visual artist partner, John Lucas. The first of these scripts is made up of lines from CNN's coverage of Hurricane Katrina and the terrible things that happened after the storm. Rankine shows how it feels to be a part of one of the many black communities along the Gulf Coast. These are communities that national relief organizations mostly ignored and didn't help properly after the hurricane destroyed the area and left many people homeless. Rankine then shows situation videos that remember the deaths of Trayvon Martin, James Craig Anderson, and other black men who were killed because of the color of their skin. In a script called Stop and Frisk, she talks about racist profiling from the first-person point of view of an unnamed narrator who is pulled over for no reason and mistreated by the police because he is black and fits the description of a criminal they are looking for. Rankine describes a scene in which the main character, who isn't named, is talking to another artist at a party in England. Leaning against the wall, they talk about the riots that broke out in London after a young black man named Mark Duggan was killed by police for no reason. The white artist who talks to the main character asks her if she plans to write about Duggan. When asked why he doesn't write about it, the main character turns the question around and asks why he doesn't. This confuses and seems to bother him, which makes the main character wonder why he thinks it would be hard for a person of a different race to feel the injustice thrown at them. The next situation video that Rankine shows is about the 2006 World Cup of Football, when Zinedine Zidane headbutted Marco Materazzi after he said something that made him angry. Rankine quotes a number of writers and thinkers, like the philosopher Maurice Blanchot, Ralph Ellison, Frantz Fanon, and James Baldwin, to show how things led up to the headbutt. The photos are taken one frame at a time. As the photos show Zidane noticing what Materazzi has said, turning around to face him, and talking to him, Rankine gives excerpts from the earlier thinkers, including Frantz Fanon's thoughts on the past of discrimination against Algerian people in France. She also uses what lip readers said Materazzi said to anger Zidane. They said Materazzi called Zidane names like big Algerian shit, dirty terrorist, and the N-word. In the last parts of the book, the second-person protagonist sees that nobody wants to sit next to a certain black man on the train, so she takes the seat. Even though the man doesn't look at her, she feels connected to him because she knows that it's sometimes important for black people to become numb to the many slights and wrongs done to them. This idea of numbness is continued in the last part, which is called July 13, 2013, and is about the day Trayvon Martin's killer was found not guilty. Rankine keeps looking at how the main character tends towards numbness. On the last page of the book, she suddenly switches to first-person storytelling to tell about something that happens while she and her partner are lying in bed. She tells him she was killing time in the parking lot by the tennis courts that day when a woman parked in front of her car. When she saw the main character sitting across from her, she put her car in reverse and parked somewhere else. The main character didn't follow the woman to find out why she did this. Instead, she took her tennis stick and went to the court. "Did you win?" her partner asks. "It wasn't a match," she replies. "It was a lesson."
About the author. Claudia Rankine was born in 1963 in Kingston, Jamaica. When she was 7 years old, her family moved to New York City. In New York, she went to grade and high schools that were both Roman Catholic. Both were in the Bronx. Later, in 1986, she got a degree from Williams College, and in 1993, she got a Master of Fine Arts in Writing from Columbia University. Her first poem book, Nothing in Nature is Private, came out in 1994. Her second, The End of the Alphabet, came out in 1998. 3 years later, she released Plot, a long poem that was the length of a book. Don't Let Me Be Lonely, An American Lyric, a multimedia book she put out in 2004, was her first widely known work. It was similar in style to Citizen, An American Lyric, which was a National Book Award nominee and came out in 2014. Rankine won a number of awards for Citizen, including the NAACP Image Award for Poetry, the PN Open Book Award, and the National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry. She has taught literature and creative writing at Barnard College, the University of Georgia, the University of Houston, Pomona College, and Case Western Reserve University. She is a teacher at Yale University right now.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.